Hello everyone and welcome to English 120, week 11. This week we're going to talk about several things. We're going to be working on our next big assignment, which is our annotated bibliography. We're going to work on writing a position statement about our topic, and we're going to work on, we're going to watch a video and learn how to properly access online databases at our library. There will be no readings this week from the Conscious Reader because you're going to be hopefully finding so many awesome articles in our online databases that you won't have time to read the Conscious Reader. Your three assignments that you're going to be doing are first, you're going to be working on a position statement, and you're going to do that as part of a discussion forum. You'll also be completing the research unit quotation proficiency in comp class and taking the research unit quiz. And you're going to be developing your annotated bibliography, which I'm going to be talking to you about now. So don't forget to watch the videos on how to access our library. Our librarian, Stephanie, does a wonderful job introducing the online databases that you can access from your own home. And you are expected as part of your research project to use academic resources. Those are articles that are peer-reviewed. And Stephanie will talk a little bit more about that. So please make sure you watch the video after you watch this video. Next, you're going to be working on your own position statement for your research paper. To develop a statement about your position on your issue, I'd like you to start off by brainstorming or free writing in response to your research question. Now, if you haven't already developed a solid research question, remember Chapter 3 in the Bedford Researcher talks about developing a strong research question. In fact, there's some wonderful information on pages 42, 43, 44, and 45 about generating potential research questions and then really refining those research questions so that they are the strongest questions that you can have. Then in your discussion post, what I'd like you to do is to write your current research questions, then brainstorm or free write in response to your research question. What do you feel like the answers to these questions are based on the research that you've begun? Then I want you to select the response that best reflects your current understanding of the conversation you have decided to join. If appropriate, combine responses into one position statement. Remember that whenever you're writing an argumentative research paper, you're joining a conversation about a topic. That's a two-sided topic, an arguable topic where lots of different people, experts in the field, have different opinions and ideas about the topic that you're studying. When you take a position, you are staking out your claim. You are finding the piece of ground on this topic that you want to defend with your own scholarship. So once you do find that through your free writing, then you're going to write your position statement. Once you've done that, you're going to respond to your peers' posts as well. Read their position statements and their research questions, and tell them whether you feel like they've created an arguable position. If you feel like the conversation that they're joining is clearly defined. And if you don't feel like it is, or you do feel like it is, please state why. We really want this to be constructive feedback, so please try to be really kind, knowing that we're all working really hard and trying to learn how to do this. But also constructive, so that your peers can actually read what you're saying and improve if there's work to be done on the position statements. The next thing I want to talk to you about is our annotated bibliography. This is due on 4/22. That's next Monday at 11:59 p.m. Here are the requirements. You need to use at least 4 sources. And your final paper needs to be approximately 3 to 4 pages. Your paper needs to be in MLA format. And you're going to be compiling an annotated bibliography of at least 4 sources that are related to the topic you've chosen to write your research paper on. So what is an annotated bibliography? It's a list of citations to books, articles, and other resources. Each citation is followed by a brief descriptive and evaluative paragraph, which is called the annotation. The purpose of the annotation is to inform the reader of the relevance, accuracy, and quality of the sources cited. Here's your process. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify, this typo, you're going to identify 4 sources you feel are relevant to your research topic. Then you're going to create citations for each source in MLA format. Now remember, you want to make sure that you look in Chapter 21 of the Bedford Researcher to find out exactly how to cite your source in MLA format. Then you're going to write a concise annotation that summarizes the central theme and scope of your source. These annotations should include 3 or more sentences, and I have an example that follows after this, that do the following things. First, you want to evaluate the authority, background, and education of the authors. That you want to establish the ethos, right? Why is this person an expert on this topic? And why should you listen to them, right? Second thing you want to do is comment on the intended audience. For whom was it written? Don't just say everybody, right? Look at where the journal is from. Maybe it's the Journal for the Modernist Society, and that would be specifically that specific publication would be probably popular amongst English professors or scholars who study American literature or British literature. Compare or contrast this work with another you've cited. How does this work make sense within the conversation of sources that you have about this work, about this topic? And discuss how this work explains your selected topic. What perspective on your topic does this work provide? So let's start with the annotation. At the beginning of every single entry, you want to have a citation. And as I said before, Chapter 21 of the Bedford Researcher tells you how to do this. Here we have an article by Lisa Mundy, and the article title is Souls on Ice. It's from a magazine called Mother Jones, and it's from the July-August issue from 2006, and it's found on pages 39 through 45. The reason why we give citations like this is so that if you're reading an article and someone cites another source, you should have enough information in that citation that you can go out and find that source somewhere else. And I'll tell you, some of the best research you're going to do in your research project is going to be by finding articles by someone who's an expert on your topic, and then reviewing their sources, and you'll find more treasures of resources in their own sources, what they've been reading to write their article. It's like an endless chain of information. The next thing you're going to do in your annotated bibliography is you're going to write a summary. Here is an example of a long summary about the Mother Jones article that we just cited. Mother Jones is a liberal magazine published 6 times per year with nationwide readers. The magazine publishes articles on current issues that are thoroughly researched and written to make the reader think. Noted by the magazine, Mother Jones is an independent nonprofit whose roots lie in a commitment to social justice, implementing through first-rate investigative reporting. As a staff writer for the Washington Post, Lisa Mundy started writing on infertility in 2003. Her article is written for the general reader, but also for all those considering IVF, in vitro fertilization, and those who've gone through the process. The article raises awareness to the current and future dilemma of excess embryos. Now notice in this first part of the summary, we have established what the magazine is, where this article comes from, who reads that magazine. Secondly, we've also talked about who Lisa Mundi, the author of this article, is and why she's an expert on the topic. Then we've also then we go into more of detail of what the article is about. This article points out that in vitro fertilization, or IVF, presents ethical dilemmas that need to be dealt with but that are often ignored. Couples have basically 5 options to decide what to do with unused embryos. Use them all to have more children, but how many children can a couple have? Give the embryos away to another couple, but the dilemma is that these children would be full biological sibling to their children and raised by someone else. Donate the embryos to scientific research, but at this point, is it an unborn child or biological tissue? Let the embryos thaw, but this means death. Keep the embryos frozen, but how long can an embryo be frozen, and should it be frozen forever? And then finally, the summary ends. There is one more option that couples are choosing to do with their estimated 500,000 embryos, and that is nothing. This lack of action is what is fueling the debate over the unused embryos and what will be the final outcome for these souls on ice. Notice that whenever this person who's writing this first annotation is quoting the article, he or she is putting that quotation, those words in quotation marks. Now, the writer has written an objective, accurate summary of the article that focuses on the publication and the writer's thesis, and on the most relevant key points the writer makes. The third part of your annotated bibliography is the evaluation. So here's an example of the evaluation of this article, because this is where we'll talk about how to do it in just a second. Let me just read it to you first. Evaluation. Mundi wrote a realistic and credible article on the torment couples are facing with the question of what to do with unused embryos after IVF. Mundi has done her research to write about a subject that is emotional and brings to light the need for guidance and counseling for couples considering this procedure. It is indeed a thought-provoking article on a subject that must be well thought out because of the continued growth of embryos and because of the possibilities for medical advancement through research using these embryos. Here the writer has explained why she has chosen this article, including why she finds it reliable. Oh, sorry, there's a repeat right here. So that's the evaluation, okay, of the article. And here's how you do it. Here the writer has explained why she has chosen this article, including why she finds it to be reliable. Evaluations can discuss reliability, relevance, currency, logic, style, and more. Evaluations don't have to be 100% positive. You can go in and say that you did not like the article, that it wasn't well written, but they should show that the source has enough strength to make it worthwhile for others to read and use. Finally, you're going to write your response. I did not realize the amount of unused embryos that are frozen in limbo. I agree with Mundi that something has to be done. As fertility medicine and procedures advance, more and more eggs are frozen, and the dilemma what to do with them should be resolved. As quoted in Mundi's article, this embryo glut is forcing many people to reconsider whatever they thought about issues such as life and death and choice and reproductive freedom. This article has made me think in a new way about this issue. So what your response is an informal response that describes how the source affected the writer's opinions. Now I'll have the whole version of this first entry, a sample of it, posted under this week's content, but I kind of wanted to go through it with you just so it was very clear how to make this document. Now, if you have any questions while you're working on this, please make sure you contact me. Also, one last thing, that in our under this week's content, there will be a sign-up sheet beginning next week. We're going to start to have a required conference about your research project. This is where you get to come meet with me in person or over the phone, and we talk about where you're at in your research project and how to move forward. So please don't forget to sign up. All right, that's it for this week. Next week, we'll be beginning to outline our actual paper. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.